Oscar de la Hoya threw up blood after his morning run. Not once. Every single day for 8 weeks straight. While you remember the pretty boy with the golden gloves and $1 million smile, you never saw what he did in the darkness. You never witnessed the violence he committed against his own body. The world saw a crossover star. They missed the psychopath. Because here's what nobody tells you about the golden boy. He didn't win 6 division world championships because of talent. Talent was just the entry fee. He won because he discovered something up in those mountains that broke every other fighter who tried to follow him there. At 5 a.m., while champions slept, Oscar was already 3 miles into a run that would hospitalize most professional athletes. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, and he smiled. This wasn't training. This was a religious experience. This was a man keeping a promise to a ghost. And what you're about to discover will completely change everything you thought you knew about what it actually takes to become a legend. Oscar de la Hoya was 15 years old when his mother grabbed his hand from her hospital bed and made him swear an oath that would define his entire existence. Win the Olympic gold medal for me, Oscar. Promise me. 2 days later, she was dead from cancer. And that promise became his prison. East Los Angeles in the 1980s wasn't a neighborhood. It was a war zone. Gang violence, poverty, funerals for teenagers. Oscar walked past drug dealers on his way to Resurrection Gym every single morning. Some of his childhood friends didn't make it to adulthood. But inside that gym with its cracked concrete floors and bags held together with duct tape, something dangerous was being built. The Mexican trainers who ran that place didn't believe in soft hands or gentle corrections. You got slapped for showing weakness. Sparring sessions were street fights with gloves on. Blood was expected. Quitting was unforgivable. Oscar absorbed every brutal lesson, every punch to the face, every humiliation, every moment of pain. Because he wasn't training to be good. He was training to keep a deathbed promise. And that difference between wanting success and needing it to honor the dead, that's what separates champions from legends. His mother's ghost followed him into every training session. Every punch he threw was for her. Every drop of sweat was a prayer. But the streets were just the beginning. 7,000 feet above sea level, thin air that feels like breathing through a straw. Temperatures that drop below freezing before sunrise. Complete isolation from everything except your own suffering. Welcome to Big Bear Training Camp, Oscar de la Hoya's Cathedral of Pain. This wasn't a gym. This was a monastery for fighters willing to break themselves in pursuit of perfection. Oscar would disappear into these mountains for 8-week training camps that felt like prison sentences. No distractions, no comfort, no escape. Just training, sleep, and the crushing weight of altitude pressing down on your lungs every single second. Other fighters trained at Big Bear, but nobody lived there like Oscar did. Nobody embraced the suffering the way he did. The altitude wasn't just about building red blood cells, it was about psychological warfare. It was about breaking your own mind before any opponent got the chance. Every breath was a small war against your body's desperate need for oxygen. Every run felt like drowning on dry land. Fighters vomited from oxygen deprivation during roadwork. Nosebleeds from the dry air were common. Headaches felt like someone was crushing your skull in a vice. Most boxers counted down the days until they could leave. Oscar counted the rounds until his next fight. Because up here, removed from the world, he wasn't the golden boy. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't carrying anyone's expectations. He was just a weapon being sharpened. And weapons don't complain about the grinding stone. But the location was nothing compared to what he actually did there. 5 a.m., pitch black, freezing cold. Oscar de la Hoya's alarm wasn't a suggestion. It was a declaration of war against weakness. While other champions eased into their mornings with stretching and coffee, Oscar attacked the day like it owed him money. No warm-up, no hesitation, just violence against the mountain. 6 to 8 miles through trails that twisted ankles and destroyed knees. Every step at 7,000 feet altitude. Every breath a knife in the lungs. By mile 3, your legs are screaming. By mile 5, you're tasting blood in your throat. By mile 7, you're negotiating with God. Oscar kept running. He didn't jog. He didn't pace himself. He ran like someone was chasing him. Like his mother's ghost was right behind him, asking if he'd kept his promise yet. The metallic taste of blood, the burning in the chest, the complete isolation, just you and the mountain, and the darkness and your own refusal to be soft. Then he'd return to camp. No rest, straight into shadowboxing. 500 punches minimum while exhaustion already owned his shoulders. Sharp combinations, defensive movements, footwork patterns. His breakfast was fuel, nothing more. Oatmeal, eggs, fruit, calculated, efficient, consumed without joy. And that was just the warm-up. The real war started in the afternoon. 2 p.m., the gym, where Oscar De La Hoya transformed from human being into something more dangerous. This is when the real work began. This is when the legend was actually built. First came pad work, not the light technical drills you see in commercial gyms today. Explosive 30-minute sessions that left his trainer's hands swelling through the padding. Oscar threw combinations with bad intentions. Every hook to the body could crack ribs. Every straight right was delivered to hurt. The sweat flew off his body like a rainstorm. The sound of leather hitting pads echoed like gunshots. Then the speed bag, 15-minute runs that turned his shoulders into burning stone. The rhythm became hypnotic, meditative, a form of violence as art. The bag became a blur. His hands became weapons moving faster than thought. Next, the heavy bag. Oscar didn't tap it. He murdered it. The chain groaned under the force. The boom echoed through the entire gym. The bag swung like a wrecking ball. He threw combinations that would knock out grown men. Body shots that made the leather cry. Uppercuts that lifted the bag off its moorings. Then came sparring. Full contact warfare with fresh opponents who rotated in every 3 rounds. Oscar insisted on hard sparring. He wanted to be hurt in training so nothing in the ring could shock him. Some sparring sessions were harder than his actual fights, and he preferred it that way. Blood was normal. Swelling was expected. Pain was information. After sparring came footwork drills until his calves cramped. Defensive drills until blocking became instinct. Endless repetition, chasing a perfection that didn't exist. But the physical torture was only half the story. Here's something nobody talks about. After training days that would hospitalize normal human beings, Oscar De La Hoya sometimes returned to the gym at night. Not every night, but enough to become legendary among those who witnessed it. Picture this: empty gym, single light cutting through the darkness. Just Oscar and his demons and the sound of his own breathing. He'd work pure technique, subtle adjustments to his jab, hip rotation on the hook, weight distribution on the pivot. This wasn't about conditioning, this was about obsession. What drives a man who's already done more than everyone else to do even more? Was it fear of losing? The promise to his mother burning in his chest? Or something darker, an addiction to the suffering itself? Some called it dedication, others called it insanity. Oscar called it necessary, because champions train hard, but legends train when nobody's watching. They train when there's no camera, no audience, no applause, just the work and the darkness and the question that haunts every great fighter: have I done enough? For Oscar, the answer was always no. This obsession built something inside him that no opponent could match. Oscar De La Hoya trained his mind harder than his body, and that's what made him unbeatable. Every roadwork session was mental conditioning, learning to function through suffering, learning to think clearly when your body was screaming for mercy, learning to embrace the pain instead of running from it. During mountain runs, he mentally fought entire bouts, visualized opponents, rehearsed combinations, imagined their faces during heavy bag work. By the time he entered the ring, he'd already beaten them 1,000 times in his mind. His training camp intensity became a psychological weapon. Opponents knew about Big Bear. They knew about the suffering. And that knowledge planted seeds of doubt before they ever threw a punch. They wondered if they'd trained hard enough, if they could match his conditioning, if they wanted it as badly as he did. Oscar didn't just endure pain, he studied it, understood it, made it his ally. Pain became information, exhaustion became a competitive advantage. If he could push through it better than anyone else, that was a weapon nobody could take from him. But there was something darker fueling everything. The weight of expectation. Fighting for a dead mother. Carrying Mexican-American hopes on his shoulders. Being the golden boy when all you wanted was to be left alone with your work. That psychological pressure would have crushed weaker men. Oscar transformed it into fuel, into rage, into precision. His training wasn't about being strong. It was about being unbreakable. And when he entered the ring, opponents could feel that difference. But let's talk about what Oscar De La Hoya actually gave up. Because glory isn't free, and legends pay in currency most people can't afford. Missed birthdays, relationships that couldn't survive the obsession, a youth spent suffering while everyone else lived normal lives. 8-week training camps in complete isolation, removed from everything human, existing only to train, to suffer, to improve. The physical toll was obvious. Accumulated damage, brutal weight cuts that tortured his body, training injuries that would have sidelined normal fighters, but Oscar pushed through anyway. Hands that never fully healed, a brain that took thousands of punches in sparring before the real fights even began. The psychological cost was worse, pressure that never lifted, the impossibility of ever doing enough, the burden of being everyone's hope, his mother's ghost, his community's dreams. The golden boy who couldn't afford to tarnish. Was it worth it? Ask the 6 division championships. Ask the Olympic gold medal he promised his dying mother. Modern fighters train in altitude chambers instead of mountain camps. They rely on sports science instead of gut instinct, recovery protocols instead of pushing through pain. And maybe that's smarter, maybe that's evolution, but something's been lost. The psychological hardening, the mythic suffering, the warrior mentality forged through isolation and pain. Today's champions are more scientific, more efficient, better understood. But are they tougher? Are they more willing to break themselves in pursuit of greatness? Oscar's blueprint doesn't exist anymore because nobody wants to pay that price. Nobody wants to disappear into the mountains for 8 weeks. Nobody wants to run until they vomit blood. Nobody wants to choose suffering when comfort is available. Modern training is better for your body, but Oscar's training was better for your soul, and you can't measure that in a laboratory. Olympic gold at 17 years old, keeping his mother's promise from beyond the grave. 6 division world championships, generations of fighters inspired. A blueprint for old-school toughness in a soft modern world. But Oscar de la Hoya's real legacy isn't counted in titles. It's measured in the mountain miles, the pre-dawn darkness, the suffering nobody witnessed. The nights he returned to the gym when everyone else was sleeping. Every championship was earned in Big Bear's thin air. Every victory was forged in those 5 a.m. runs. Every knockout was built in sparring sessions harder than the actual fights. He proved that beneath golden gloves and a pretty face, there were iron fists and an unbreakable mind. He bridged eras. The last warrior monk, the first crossover superstar. De la Hoya showed the world that you can't fake toughness. You either earn it or you don't. Strip away the mythology and here's the truth. Oscar de la Hoya's training wasn't really about boxing. It was about testing human limits. About discovering what you're capable of when nobody's watching and nothing's guaranteed. His camps weren't gym sessions, they were spiritual journeys. The suffering wasn't punishment, it was transformation. Everyone faces their own big bear. That impossible challenge. That goal requiring suffering others won't endure. That mountain only you can see. Oscar's message wasn't train like me. It was find your mountain and climb it until you're unbreakable. His story isn't about boxing technique. It's about the decision you make when your body begs you to quit and your mind whispers that nobody would blame you. Oscar de la Hoya's secret wasn't altitude or mileage. It was his willingness to suffer alone while others took shortcuts. So here's your question. What's your big bear? What are you avoiding because it's too hard, too isolated, too painful? What promise are you breaking because nobody's watching? Oscar ran those mountains for years before anyone cared. Before fame, before money. Just him and his dead mother's promise and the refusal to be ordinary. Greatness isn't trained in comfort. It's forged in darkness when nobody's cheering. Somewhere right now, at 5 a.m., someone is running their mountain in darkness. Someone is keeping their promise. Someone is becoming unbreakable. Will that be you?